Welcome, Damian. Thank you for being our guest today. Um, um, I've invited you because you represent not only coaching supervision, as you are one of the greatest supervisor in the world, but also because you are born in Latin America, you know the culture, and now you live in Los Angeles. And so you are pretty aware of cultural differences. And what I'm interested to know is how supervision can help coaches to raise their awareness of cultural differences.
Yeah, great question. Well, thank you for inviting me to discuss this issue that I really care about very much. And particularly with everything going on in the world these days, it is very important as coaches to pay attention about how culture may be influencing the work we do. Now, culture can be not only country of origin, people living from different countries, but sometimes culture may also be related to gender issues, age issues, different generations at work, even inside organizations, different units have different cultures. And when we're talking about culture, we're talking about people who share the same beliefs, the same habits, the same traditions. But most of the time when we think about culture, we think about shared beliefs and values. Now, what is tricky is that there are diversity within the diversity. So for example, I am from Argentina. And Argentinians, we are known in the world for something like Italians. Italians are known in the world for some way of expressing themselves and for how beautiful is the country. When people think in Italy, think about the beautiful, one of my favorite countries in the world. But then there is the diversity within the country, because Italians are very different in the north than in the south. Mm-hmm. And people from Rome are very different than people from Milan. So as you can see, there are diversities within the diversity. So we want to be careful when we are thinking about Latin America. Not all Latin Americans are the same. Not all Argentinians are the same. Now, for example, there is I don't know in Italy, but in Latin America, it's very common that people from capital cities, like for example, Buenos Aires from Argentina, or Mexico City from Mexico, have a little bit of a reputation in the countries, and are a little bit different than the rest of the country. And sometimes these capitals are the biggest cities, are the most developed, are the richest, are the most privileged. And so, for example, many people, when there are stereotypes about each country and about even each city. I can ask you what are the stereotypes when people think about people from Rome, or from people from Venice, or people from Milan, or people from the South. You know, they have different ideas. But what I think is important for us as coaches is to be curious. So one of the key elements working with diversity is curiosity. So we want to know as coaches how the person that we have in front of us is unique. It's unique. We don't know how they relate to the culture. So for example, if you think about Argentina and something in common with Italian, we have a lot in common with Italian because we have a big tradition of Italian immigrants to Argentina. So we love pizza, one of my favorite food is from Italy. But for example, soccer. So if you think anybody who meets me and think I am from Argentina will right away associate me with soccer and the great soccer players that we have, some playing in Italy. And I am an exception because I personally don't follow soccer. So I don't follow the norm of Argentinians that love soccer. So if somebody would try to build empathy and connect with me through soccer, that would not work. So the message that I want to give here is that we want to be very curious when we're working with somebody from a different culture to know about them and how they are unique and how they or they not relate to some basic traditions or values from the culture they belong. So this is the first message that I want people to pay attention. And also to pay attention to the diversity between the countries. So the question that I like to ask, Rossella, to my client is, what do you need for me to know about you so I can work with you? And I ask this question as a supervisor and as a coach. I ask my client, what do I need to know about you? What do I need to know about your culture to be effective working with you? And we need to be curious and open to see what's come up. And then we also want to ask, what do you need to know about me so we can work together. So it's not only what do I need to know about you, but you as my client, what do you need to know about me as your supervisor, as your coach to work with you? So I think that curiosity and not being careful with our assumptions are very important.
Thank you. And I must admit, I've already started asking those questions now in all my discovery sessions, and they work beautifully.
Okay, great to hear. Great to hear.
Thank you. So what I loved about the supervision coaching, the coaching supervision program that I did with you was the diversity of the group. And I wonder, how do you make that space so inclusive? What is your secret?
Well, I talk to people from different countries and different places. So I make an effort in learning and connecting and relating to people from different cultures. And I am very curious and I like to learn. So I like to travel. I like to learn about different cultures, about different groups. And I ask a lot of questions. And then I build relationships. So we attract people based on the relationships that we build. And so that will be one key element, how we invest time as coaches in building our practices or in our works, how we build relationship with people in our systems so we can be more aware of how these different diversity issues may be playing.
Yeah, and I have a curiosity now. When you created the groups, like the triads and the groups that we were using for group supervision, which was the criteria you were using to?
Well, Rossella, being honest with you, sometimes they work great and sometimes they don't work. So they don't work all the time. But I try to mix. Gender, men and women, people from different cultures. Like most of the time in the program, let's say 1/3 are from the United States, another third are from Europe, another third are from Latin America, some from Asia. I have another class that is basically for Asia participants. So I try to mix gender, three things: gender, country of origin, but also experience, because there are some people who have more experience than others. So you don't want to put everybody with the same experience in the same group. It depends what you're trying to accomplish. Sometimes it is appropriate and sometimes it's not. So, and then you use your intuition. That we need to develop as coaches, supervisors, is our intuition. Who do we think will work well? And sometimes our intuition is great and sometimes it's not. So, you know, it's like,
well, it did definitely work well in my experience. So, and another curiosity here, as a supervisor, do you notice any recurrent patterns related to culture in the cases that coaches bring to you?
Well, something that I notice, Rossella, is sometimes coaches are not aware that maybe cultural issues. They are blind to cultural issues. It's like they are talking about challenges or things, topics that the clients are bringing, and they didn't think about how culture can have a component. So how the client is not culturally aware and how the coach may share the same blindness with the client. So maybe in supervision, we want to pay attention to that and say, okay, is there a possibility that there is something we are not, that you're not discussing with your client or you're not exploring with your client, that may be really that your client is from a different culture, that other stakeholders and have different values, different ways of looking reality, and they have not discussed that. So it may be a blind spot for the client, it may be a blind spot for the coach. So that's the reason why supervision is so important, because as supervisors, we may be looking at that.
And one of the eyes of supervision that is mostly impacted by culture is the I7 about the system.
Yeah, so being curious about how the context is impacting the work we do.
Okay. Do you notice anything else that can create a better dialogue between the coach and the client?
If we look at culture, we may be careful, because if we are from different cultures, we may have also different values. So it's looking about how differences in beliefs and values may be playing. What we can be blind spots, what we are not paying attention to, that may be impacting, that can be related to differences in way of thinking, in what is important. And that is a really interesting place to discuss and explore, because many times there is not in the awareness of stakeholders. So by clarifying that, you may get people to be more effective working together. So for example, a question that I like to ask my clients is, okay, what do you need from, not only what do you need to know about me to work well together, but how do you want to work with me? What do you need from me to be an effective coach for you? What do you need from me to be an effective supervisor for you? Because maybe unique to the individual that you have in front of you. And many times leaders are not effective in asking that question to their colleagues. So when I coach leaders, many times I ask them, how do you clarify? What do you want? What do you need to work effectively with your teams? So, and many times can be values about what is important to them that may be different. So if you're working with people from a different country, sometimes different sectors, different banking, probably different that other kind of industries and organizations. So you need, and even inside each organization, there are different cultures. Many times HR have a different culture than finance and operations. So yeah, that's interesting beliefs about what is important. So being curious about that and bringing up to the open and being courage, having the courage to go to these uncomfortable places that maybe make a difference in the work we do.
So curiosity, courage, and I would say also a little bit of a compassion. In our group, at a certain moment, we realized how probably the different culture we were belonging to were having an impact in also the perception we were having in the group. So do you notice anything special happening in groups when you do supervision with groups? Well,
in supervision groups, again, there are similar dynamics, and the key element is contracting. As you know, in supervision, we spend a lot of time talking and discussing and exploring contracting, because there is where you discuss how we're going to be dealing with differences in culture in this group. So you need to bring that to conversation since the beginning. Okay, how we're going to be dealing with differences in culture. Sometimes they show up differently in different ways. For example, something that I need to learn as an immigrant to the United States is about managing time, relationship with time. And I think Italians have a similar relationship with time than Latin Americans. I think our Spaniards in the south of Europe is a different relationship with time than in the north of Europe. So that can be sometimes challenging. And then you have individual variants, because I assume that in your teams in Italy, people are different. Some are more punctual than others. So then you have the cultural norms, and then you have the organization norms. Like I worked with a client in Chile, and they were like a clock at 12. They were waiting, and I had to be there. And you know me, that my program, I always start on time. With that, you can say that this is true. Like I am pretty, like when I teach classes and programs, I always start on time, so people can expect that from me. But not all the time, not in all contexts.
Okay, so any case or funny fact you recall from your experience as a supervisor, and that is related to either culture or inclusion?
Well, I think in terms of, I don't think I cannot think right now in a funny story, but I think that we had to be careful about misinterpretations. I think we had to be careful the language that we use. So I think that we had to be careful when we're working with different cultures, people, how they can misinterpret us. Like I'm thinking now you're saying funny facts. I was teaching a class in Brazil, and I want to emphasize the point So I make this gesture, like emphasizing, and you need to do this, and you need to do that. Like I did that 2-3 times in my class, and then in the break, somebody came to me and said, don't do that. That means it's a sexual. It's a sexual. I said, oh no, I was all red, and I didn't know how to come back after the break to class because I was so embarrassed, like. Or I remember I was invited to a dinner from a colleague, and he was a religious Jew, and I am Jewish too, so I should know that. I'm not religious, but I know that you don't touch women. Men don't touch women, religious women. And I go to the house, and I don't know why, because this is the Latino. I know that in Latin America we also hug and touch, and even in the United States you don't do that. I think in Italy too. Italy people are more like demonstrative.
Well, before COVID, yes.
And in the United States, it's the hug. In Argentina, it's very common people kissing each other, even men kiss each other. So I went, they opened the door, and I hugged her. And then I realized, oh no, I shouldn't have done that. And I apologized, and I was ready to go back home. I was so embarrassed that maybe when I came even inside the house, I felt so bad about it. So, sometimes, and we learn from the experience. It's like, so you're talking about compassion. It's not only about being compassionate with others, but also be self-compassion. In terms of forgiving ourselves. Like many times, because English is my second language, I invent words in English, or I say something completely wrong. And sometimes my partner listens to me and start laughing. And I laugh too, like we cannot take ourselves too seriously. So I think that is about also having that likeness in the work that we do, and respect, and being ready to apologize if we make a mistake. And also flexibility. I think being able to adapt. I think that's an important characteristic. You're talking about being curious, being courageous, and also being flexible and adaptable, being able to work with people who may be very different than us, and without trying to impose our ways of thinking or being or our values.
Yeah, that's definitely a great learning that I got from the supervision program. Thank you so much, Damian. Any message you want to give to the group of internal coaches that will listen to this video?
I think that as a summary of what we share here, I do believe that when you are coaching your clients, paying attention to issues of culture is very important. And here is, we don't need to be experts. If we work with people from different countries, we may not know about that culture. So we may do some research. Like, for example, I was hired to work with a client in a country in Africa that I didn't know much about it. So I went and I did some research. So we want to do some preparation, sometimes some planning to learn more about cultures of different people. Like if we are going to work with people from different units or different countries, learn, because maybe that unit and that organization in different countries have a different culture than in the headquarters. So learning not only about the culture of the country, but the culture of the organization that we're working with, because maybe different than ours. So being curious and doing some planning and preparation is important too.
If you have any issue, go to your supervisor.
Yes, definitely. Supervision is a great place to explore all of these issues.
Yeah, and discover all your biases. So thank you so much, really, Damian. And I really hope next time you will be able to be with us live.
Thank you.
Thank you.